In October 1929, the global economy didn't collapse because humanity forgot how to build things. It collapsed because the system's wiring broke. Wealth concentrated at the top, consumer credit overextended, and suddenly the music stopped. For nearly a century, economists have studied the Great Depression to ensure it never happens again. We built safety nets, regulated banks, and monitored inflation. But we prepared for the ghosts of the past. We didn't prepare for an economy run by software that can think, optimize, and execute faster than any human alive. Right now, we are witnessing the fastest technological rollout in human history. Tech leaders promise it will usher in an era of infinite abundance. But macroeconomists are quietly whispering a much darker alternative, that artificial intelligence possesses the exact structural ingredients required to trigger the next Great Depression. And this time, printing more money won't fix it. Whenever you bring up AI-driven unemployment, optimists always repeat the same historical script. When the tractor was invented, it destroyed farming jobs, but it created factory jobs. When the internet came, it killed travel agents, but it created software engineers. Technology always creates more jobs than it destroys. That logic worked for 200 years, but it relies on a fundamental assumption, that humans will always have a monopoly on cognitive labor. Past automation waves targeted muscle. AI targets mind. More importantly, it is happening at a velocity the human labor market cannot match. In past revolutions, workers had decades to retrain. An assembly line worker's child became an accountant. But what happens when the accountant, the software engineer, the paralegal, and the graphic designer are all automated within the same 5-year window? This creates a phenomenon economists call the big freeze. Large enterprises aren't necessarily firing their entire staff overnight. Instead, senior workers use AI to become 40% more productive. As a result, companies simply stop hiring entry-level positions. The corporate ladder is missing its bottom rungs. Millions of recent graduates are entering a market where the entry-level jobs they trained for no longer exist, driving a massive collapse in youth employment. This brings us to the core engine of a depression: consumer demand. There is an old, famous economic adage: machines don't buy shoes. Think about how the global economy actually works. It's a closed loop, the capitalist loop. 1. Corporations pay wages to human workers. 2. Human workers turn around and spend those wages on food, rent, cars, and electronics. 3. That consumer spending accounts for roughly 70% of the US GDP. If a company replaces 30% of its workforce with software agents, its profit margins skyrocket. Wall Street celebrates. The CEO gets a massive bonus. But from a macroeconomic perspective, a catastrophic leak has just opened in the loop. An AI agent does not pay rent. It does not buy a morning latte. It does not buy a flight for vacation. The wealth generated by AI concentrates entirely in the hands of the top 1%, the asset owners and tech founders. But wealthy individuals do not spend enough money to sustain an economy. A billionaire might buy a super yacht, but they won't buy 10 million boxes of cereal or 10 million haircuts. When aggregate consumer demand drops because human wages are hollowed out, businesses across the world lose their customers. They cut prices, leading to deflation, and then they go bankrupt. It is a vicious downward spiral. Lower wages lead to less spending, which leads to fewer businesses, which leads to even lower wages. That is the exact mechanism of 1929. But a depression doesn't just happen in retail stores. It happens in the financial system. The Great Depression was weaponized by the stock market crash. The 2008 recession was triggered by subprime mortgages hidden inside complex financial derivatives. In both cases, the system became too complex for humans to manage. Today, Wall Street is fully surrendering its trading desks to predictive AI models and automated high-frequency systems. They handle everything from private credit risk assessment to quantitative macro hedging. This introduces the black box systemic risk. Because these advanced models train on historical data, they optimize for normal market behaviors, but they cannot predict unprecedented, chaotic human events. Even worse, many financial institutions buy their AI models from the exact same handful of tech infrastructure giants. This creates a dangerous monoculture. If an unexpected geopolitical event occurs, hundreds of independent financial algorithms might simultaneously interpret the data the exact same way and execute massive sell-offs in a fraction of a second. We've seen minor versions of this before, called flash crashes. But in an entirely AI-dominated market, an automated cascade could wipe out trillions of dollars in wealth before human regulators can even open their laptops, freezing global credit liquidity instantly. When the economy breaks down, citizens look to the government for help. During the Great Depression, President Franklin D. Roosevelt launched the New Deal, massive government spending to put people back to work building infrastructure. But AI creates a unique fiscal trap that makes a modern New Deal nearly impossible to finance. How do governments collect money? They collect income taxes from workers. They collect payroll taxes from employers. They collect sales taxes from consumers. Notice a pattern? The entire tax base is tethered directly to human employment and human consumption. If AI scales across the economy, displacing white-collar and administrative work, income tax revenues dry up. Corporate tax revenue might increase slightly, but multinational tech corporations are notoriously adept at shifting profits to offshore tax havens. So, the government faces a brutal paradox. Tax revenues are plummeting at the exact moment citizens require unprecedented financial aid. The traditional response is to print money or issue sovereign debt. But if an economy's productive capacity is high while its citizens are broke, hyperprinting currency simply devalues the fiat system entirely, leading to a sovereign debt crisis. The safety net snap. The threat of an AI-induced depression isn't confined within domestic borders. For the past 50 years, developing countries have climbed into the middle class using a reliable economic ladder, cheap manufacturing, and outsourced back-office labor. When customer service, basic coding, data entry, and administrative tasks can be done for fractions of a penny by centralized server hubs in Virginia or California, outsourcing disappears overnight. Developing economies lose their primary source of foreign capital. This causes localized depressions that ripple across the globe, fracturing international supply chains and destroying export markets for Western goods. An AI-driven depression is not inevitable, but avoiding it requires us to admit that the old economic rulebook is obsolete. We cannot fix a structural cognitive revolution with temporary unemployment checks. If machines are going to do the work, then humanity must own a piece of the machines. Economists are already drawing up frameworks for universal basic income funded by automated asset dividends, or creating sovereign wealth funds that distribute the bounty of AI production directly to every citizen. Technology has given us an engine capable of creating unimaginable wealth. But if we don't redesign the pipes that distribute that wealth, the engine will flood, stall, and plunge the world into an economic freeze unlike anything we've ever seen. The crisis of the next decade won't be a failure of technology. It will be a failure of planning and foresight. If you enjoyed this deep dive, like, subscribe, and comment below. Until next time.